Hello and welcome to another colourful edition of A Splash of Paint, brought to you in association with the SAA, Society for All Artists. Today's sparkling programme is full of practical information and demonstrations to inspire your artistic passion and encourage you to try something new. So switch on your creativity and settle back for 60 minutes of all the latest tips, tricks and techniques from some of the most popular leading artists. Let's get started and take a closer look at what's lined up on today's palette. SAA professional artist and tutor Terry Chip will be here to demonstrate how to unlock the power of Atelier interactive acrylics in today's Try Your Hand At project. Popular pencil magician Malcolm Cudmore conjures up a few more of his favourite things. We'll be unlocking the Art Byte archive door to see how versatile artist Patrick Howe uses watercolour and light to create some stunning reflections. SAA professional oil and acrylic artist Mike Skidmore drops by to lift the lid on some of his favourite tools and tricks in our regular What's in Your Box feature. And popular oil artist Warren Seeley returns to demonstrate the positive power and beauty of black magic. But before all that, I'm going to show you a few simple sketching techniques. Everything in nature or man-made objects have a little bit of logic to them, and working with a symmetry line can really make life easier when sketching. The first example I'd like to show you would be how to do a couple of boats, because boats, for me, in my painting, feature quite a lot. And there's two ways to look at boats. One of them is looking down at them from maybe a hillside, and the other one is looking sort of direct level with your eyes. And I'll show you both methods. So a boat has got a definite structure. Let's say, for example, that we've got a boat that I'm looking down at. And we start off by putting a line down the centre of the boat and just kind of goes on, just using a 2B pencil for this. Treat that as a bit of a guideline, okay? And then what I'll do next is I'll put the back of the boat, which has got equal measurements from the centre point, right and left. Every boat pretty much has the widest part as well, so we can do that. And again, we'll try and match this widest part if possible. It kind of starts off by looking like a very naive aeroplane. And that gives us the important parts of the boat. Gives us the back coming out to the point. And because those lines match, it pretty much always will. It gives that definite sort of leaf shape of a boat. And then we go for the centre of the rear there. So you can see it's starting to take form a little bit. And then we go from the bottom of this area. There's just a bowl shape there. We go from this area and we'll work up to the point on a very steady curve, something like that. So you can see that basic shape already there. On this particular one, I'm just going to put a cabin on as well, which we can do to be a little bit of a upside down bowl shape. So it goes from that line that you first sketched in. And then we can extend, put the top of the cabin on. But already you can see how it looks like a basic boat, and boats are very hard things to sketch. This makes life a lot easier. So just a little bit of tonal work on this then. Just going to darken the back, just very gently, just so we get some structure to it. And then we'll put the darker point at the front there. And there's always a bit of shadow underneath. Just control the pressure of the pencil as you move over. Put some sort of rudder or something on the back there. And then we'll darken just that side and the top. And then we'll come down and put something on the inside. Maybe just extend the back a little bit there. So that almost gives me the inside of the boat, and you can see how it's looking like a three-dimensional object at this point. Put a bit of a sort of doorway or something on there. But it's quite handy to know this basic technique, because once you've got it, you can apply it to pretty much any boat. All of them I've ever sketched, basically the same basic structure for the hull. And then obviously that would have a bit of a mast or something up there as well. which you don't need to do too much of because that would be very tall, but at least it gives you an idea of where to start there. So a really, really simple way, an effective way of sketching it in. The other way is when you're looking almost direct in line with your eyes on a boat, and this is a really classic technique. You start off with a bit of a figure of 8. If I do another figure of 8 below, you can see the before and after. Then decide which piece is the front, which piece is the back. If I say this is the front, I'll come down there, and I'll treat that as the back of the boat, and then just bring it across, and then I'll fill in that area, fill in that part of it, and you can see how that's given the basic boat shape there. Put the central piece on and put the markers for the bits of wood and things. Put the mast on there, and albeit simple, you can see that basic boat. Just put a bit of reflection on there or something. Same for this one. Reflection would always be horizontal. And always put the mast on for the reflection. It's enough to make it work. And obviously if you're painting this, you can add whatever colour you want to this. But it just goes to show how simple and effective it can be to do a very difficult shape. And of course, if you get it right and you learn the process, it makes it so much easier. There you go, folks. Now it's time to sit back and enjoy part 1 of today's Try Your Hand at project. Let's join SAA professional artist and tutor Terry Chip as he gets interactive with acrylics to recreate the beauty and texture of a crumbling Venetian wall.
Today I'm going to create this painting of an old crumbling plaster wall from, well, the inspiration came from Venice, but it could be almost anywhere. I've already prepared the board, the canvas, by first of all drawing my design on it, then using a large palette knife and this modelling paste, scoop it on and smeared it all over to get a nice rough texture, similar to the kind of texture you might get on a roughly plastered wall. This way, when I put the paint on, it will get into the nooks and crannies. It will look a lot more natural than if I try to actually recreate those with paint brush marks. Once that moulding paste is on there, I then use a smaller palette knife just to get into the edges of these, just to tidy them up, help them stand out a little bit. And then redraw the design with a pencil so that the design is embedded into the surface of the canvas. So the first step is to start getting some paint on there, because I really don't like white canvases. But before I put the paint on, I'm going to use a piece of kitchen roll here, wet it, and then damp the whole of the canvas. This is because if I put the paint onto the canvas dry, it will immediately bind with the surface, and the colours won't run and blend as I want them to. This way, the colours are going to skate over the surface, and it will make it a lot easier to work with. It also delays the drying time a bit, which helps me as well. So, a nice wet canvas to start with, and then we begin with the paint. You'll notice I'm not getting around to using brushes yet. That comes much later. I'm always keen to get the bulk of the painting done as soon as possible. Gives me more time to play with the details. So, again, damping the tissue, squeezing it out this time, and now I'm going to pick up some paint. I'm going to go for quite a lot of yellow ochre as a basic wall colour, a little bit of the acrylamide yellow, just to brighten it up, give a bit of sunlight into it, and then some burnt sienna. And we'll see how this goes. I'm deliberately not mixing them there. I'm deliberately not going to mix them on the canvas. I'm just smudging it about. I want it to be uneven. So Again, little dabs of each. Smear it around. I could go around and polish it and smooth and get one nice even colour all over, but that would defeat the object. It's quite a quick process. Get this colour on. Just making sure it goes into all these hollows and grooves, because when I rub it off, I want that colour to be well in there without leaving any white flecks, ideally. Right, we're getting there. Does make a mess of your easel, unfortunately. Right, okay. So that's the main colours on. And because I know that this window area I want to be really quite dark, I'm just going to put a little bit of the burnt umber into that area and darken it off a little. And a little bit of blue. This is phthalo blue, the red shade, nice purple look to it. And again, I just smear a little bit of that colour around. I like to keep a colour, if it's in one place, I like it to appear in other places too. I don't want it to be just an isolated patch of colour. So that's the paint on. The next step is to get the paint off. Dry tissue this time. Start with the lighter areas. If you start with darker, you just make everything muddy. Start with the lighter areas and small rubbing movements, circular movements, lifting that paint off. We're not trying to blend it all together, we're trying to keep the colours varying across the surface. So, and after a while you have to get another tissue. These are the slightly darker areas now. You don't have to worry about getting your hands messy on this job, I'm afraid. And now I can start with the other parts. And finally coming into that darker central part of the window. I'm not trying to keep it within that space, I'm just trying to make that a slightly darker area of the picture. Okay, so if I now tidy that up with a general overall wiping, you can see how the drawing is beginning to show through. You can see where the design is. And that's giving me a nice, interesting mid-tone. I've got rid of the white canvas, I can see my drawing. The rough moulding paste on top has given me some nice textures which are already showing through, but I can bring those up even more by just damping the tissue again. I don't want it too wet, I don't want this to start dribbling and running all down the canvas. In fact, that has got too wet. Start with another one. Okay. And then I think, where do I want the light in this? I want the lintel and the shelving of the window to stand out. So with the damp tissue, I can just start to pick that off. It's an advantage of working quickly, but while this paint's still quite moist, I can pick that off. And it's coming up lighter already. And in doing this, it's highlighting again those textures that were laid in with the moulding paste. Okay, that's got that started. We're going to need some more of this. I want some more light up this side, because I want to bring up quite a bit of light into this part of the picture. I always like to have the darker colours towards the bottom. I feel it gives a better weight to the picture to have the darker colours down towards the bottom and a bit more light towards the top. So I'm lifting quite a bit of this paint off in these upper areas. Let it a bit come down there. And then if I wipe that off and see where we are. And now you can see these textures beginning to come up, and it's starting to look like a rather old, battered plaster wall. Right, I just want to highlight one or two little bits, just to give me a little bit more of a key. This window ledge here, I'm squeezing this out quite wedged, it's quite tight, so I can almost use it like an eraser. It's really quite a precise thing. And again, a bit more off that top corner there. I want to make these quite light to contrast against the darkness inside. That's the main idea behind lightening these up particularly. And let's say a few edges that are going to be a little bit lighter than others around that area. This has got a bit dark. You often find it comes off better if you damp it slightly and then come back to it a few moments later. It will lift up much easier. Right, so that I think has given me the basis. I can see my picture, I've got an idea of where the lights and darks are coming. The next step is to put in the main shadows. Now, for this I'm going to use where's a nice flat brush? There's a good one. Nice flat brush, what size, no idea. Size 10. Right, so keeping that quite moist but not too wet, I'm now going to put some shadow in. I'm going to use the burnt umber and some of the phthalo blue. That will give me a really rich, dark shadow colour. We'll see how it goes. So first of all, I'm going to put in this part that I know is going to be very dark. Take the shapes carefully. And I can tidy up all the edges and things later on, but I just want this to be a particularly dark area. That's going to be the darkest part of my picture. Okay, smudge that in with my thumb. Smudging it in brings up some of the textures that the gesso's got there. A little bit of water to this now to get it to move faster. A little bit of warmth in it because we're coming outside now. I'm going to have my light coming this way, I think, which means that I'm going to get a shadow cast down this side and underneath there. So very quickly, I go down that edge, broaden it out into a bit of a shadow there, a sharp edge, and then just smudge it away with my thumb to make a soft edge. It helps to bring up the textures again and gives quite a convincing blurred shadow. A little bit more under there, going around that area, and then I'll blur that away again on the bottom edge. That's giving me a good indication. A few other little bits under here, under there. The light's coming this way. This inside of this pillar is going to hit some shadow, whereas that will get the light. In the same way, this side of the underneath that archway is going to be in shadow, but I can put some light there because the light will hit that ledge and bounce back up to that. A little bit of dark in there. Where these bits joined there, and the cracks. I always like to put a crack in the lintel. It makes it look old, it's just something I do. A few little marks just within those cracks I've got up the wall. I don't paint them as a solid line. If I do them as a solid line, it always stands out far too much. So I'm just finding where I left these little gaps with the brickwork showing through. And I'm just going to darken those off for now, just to remind me where they are. A little bit under there perhaps. A few bits down these cracks. And I think I need to leave that to settle for a few moments before I come back in with the lights. So we've managed to get the mid-tones and the dark tones in. I'll come back with the highlights in a few moments.
Terrific techniques there, Terry. Can't wait to see more of your style of painting later on in today's programme. Well, folks, it's time for us to take a short break now, but join us in part 2 when pencil magician Malcolm Cudmore returns to conjure up a few more of his favourite things, and we delve into the artistic archive to search for another inspirational bite-sized project.